Welcome to the Jimmie Thompson Real Estate Interview Series. Our interviews are designed to help buyers and sellers in the process of buying and selling residential real estate. I'm with Richard Hansen today. He's with Amerivision Property Inspections. Richard and I have, we've been working together for about 15 years now. So Richard's been my inspector. I always recommend him if somebody else doesn't have an inspector, and most of the time they don't. But I always recommend him because of his background in construction and just his knowledge of the whole experience when you're doing an inspection. So we're going to get started with some questions. I got about 10 for you today, Richard, but thanks for meeting me here today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
All right, thanks. So why should a buyer do a home inspection?
Well, I just think that it's very advantageous for them to have someone look at the home that does have a background about homes, and that they could find any major defects that they might find in the home, so that the buyer has a chance to, first of all, know that they're there, and second of all, take the opportunity to have a contractor that is more specific in that area look at them, and then furthermore, they could do some type of negotiation with the seller.
Okay, good. To find out if they'll fix those problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens if the buyer doesn't do a home inspection?
Well, if that is your opportunity for 10 days to look at the home, and if they decide that they don't want to have a home inspection, then once those 10 days are gone, then they basically they forfeit that right. So then if some major problem comes up with the home after the sale, and they didn't address it, then they're pretty much stuck with it. And so they have to pay for it themselves. And so it's always good to know beforehand.
Exactly. So what does the typical home inspection cover? What's it like?
Well, most people sometimes misunderstand it. A home inspector is a generalist. He knows a little bit about a lot of subjects because he's going to look at the complete home. So he would look at everything. He has decent knowledge of everything in the house, and then he would point out certain things that might need to be addressed. And then you might have, let's say, an air conditioning contractor come out and do a further inspection. But the home inspector is going to know enough about all the different components of the house: the roof, the air conditioning, a pool if you have a pool, the appliances, the attic. And so they're going to be able to give you a general overview to know if you need any further evaluation or if you feel comfortable with the condition that the house is in.
Right. Okay. So what if you have a really bad inspection?
And,
I'm sure you've had some.
Oh, yeah, certainly you do have I would say most inspections are not bad inspections. Most of them turn out pretty good, but occasionally you do have a house with something really wrong with it. I mean, I've had a few houses that, one ended up having like $60,000 or $70,000 worth of mold, a problem that had to be fixed. So that was a really good house for those people to back out of and not buy. So that does happen. I would say most of the time that does not happen. Most of the time houses have common things wrong with them that can be addressed or fixed without too much of a major expense. But a home inspection can lead you in a rare instance to not buy a house. Right. And so at that point you did get saved from buying a bad house though. Right, so definitely think it's worth it.
Okay. Did you ever have any perfect inspections, like you don't find a thing wrong?
I've had a couple, but I'll just be real honest with you, not very many. So most of the time you do find some things, and I think most home inspectors probably feel a little guilty if they don't find something because they are getting paid to find something wrong with the house. But I do in-progress inspections, and I also do houses that are only 1 year old, and I almost always find stuff. I find stuff on brand new houses. So most of the time there's something to be found, and you can generally get your money back from a home inspection if the home inspector does his job, that you would save the money that you paid him.
There you go. Yeah. Otherwise you bought peace of mind, and at least you know you've got a great house.
Exactly. And some houses are very good, and you might feel like, I probably didn't need a home inspection, and you may not have needed one, but now you didn't need one if you had someone to look at it.
Better safe than sorry.
It is, yes.
So what are the most important things to look at during a home inspection?
Well, I always try to talk to people. Now, of course, I look at as many things as I can. However, you want to stick with the major components of the house, the things that would cost you a lot of money. Right. You don't want to move into a house and have to put on a brand new roof. Right. or at least if you didn't know that, or a brand new air conditioner, or something that costs you a lot of money. You do really want to stick to the big major items. However, I do look at all the small things too, but I just think as a buyer going forward, if you have to replace a fan that costs a couple $100, not the end of the world, but if you have to put on a $12,000 roof, then you're usually not too happy about that if you didn't know about it.
Right, exactly. So, so sort of wrap around with it, and I think you sort of answered this question already, but so you do a general inspection. Is it necessary to get all those, like a roofer out there and an AC guy and a pool guy, or is that only if they have a problem?
Well, and I find that different personalities and people do different things. Some people just want to have some other people out there. That's just their personality. I personally think that in most instances, I can look at the house and I know enough about those components. I do have about 30 years of experience. I do know enough about those components. I never claim to know everything, but I do know enough about them to tell you, okay, I think maybe you should have a roofer come out and do a little bit more thorough inspection, or see if the roof needs to be replaced or just maybe repaired. And then same thing with a pool guy, AC guy, which are kind of your most expensive things. But I would say right off the bat, most of the time, probably not. You could probably trust a good home inspector to tell you what you need. But however, like I said, it's a personal thing sometimes. Some people just want to have those extra guys there, but generally I would refer you to a specific contractor if I felt that you needed that.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of on a as-is basis.
Exactly.
Okay, gotcha. So what kind of qualifications does a good home inspector have to have?
Now, I got my license, like you said. Jimmy was one of my first realtors that I had when I became a home inspector. So that's why he's been around since the very beginning. It's been about 15 years for me. And so I was a general contractor before that. However, when I did it, the qualifications were 100, I think it was around 90 or 100 hours of schooling at that time. And then also you had to do 30 inspections with a licensed home inspector after you could, and then you also had to pass a state board test. You had to pass a state test because it is a state license, and then there's another test that you could pass for ASHI, and then if you're with ASHI, which is a home inspection association, you would have some continuing education every year. But basically, to answer your question, you have about 100 hours of education and then some practical inspection experience of about 30, and then you would go on and take your license and then become a home inspector. So basically there's many people, and I know them, that never had any construction background that became home inspectors, and some of them went on to be good home inspectors. But you don't, and I'm a little biased, but I was a contractor, so I do think, if you do get a guy that actually built houses or worked on houses before and then became a home inspector, I think you get a little more money, a little more value for your money. But, I know fine home inspectors who have done those things without being in that background. However, continuing education is important also to take, just like realtors have to take continuing education to make sure they're up on the most recent changes in the market. Right. Home inspectors should do the same thing too.
Okay. So, what if a home inspector misses something?
Yeah, that's never comfortable. but if a home inspector misses something, and I'm not perfect, but in many cases I have taken care of things for people. Go there and help them out, pay for something to be fixed. And then there's other instances where people don't understand exactly what is inspected, but most of the time if someone feels like I missed something, then a lot of times I will help them take care of that item. And obviously we have to carry insurance if there was some major thing that happened that the home inspector legitimately missed. None of us want to be sued, but we could be, and we do have general liability insurance to protect the homeowner against something very large that were to ever happen. I've never had a claim against me or a complaint because we are governed by the Board of Technical Registration, so I've never had a complaint. But I think most of that is because I do go back if I have something and I try to make it right with the buyer or the new homeowner.
Right. Gotcha.
And so I just think that's a good, just a good practice.
That's just the right thing to do.
It is,
yeah. So, and this wasn't one of my original questions, but you talked about a good value. So what should somebody expect to pay for a home inspection, whether it's you or anybody else, and how do most inspectors come to an amount?
Well, and the home inspection pricing, it kind of changes. I mean, I noticed over the years that, supply and demand. Home inspections can get higher when there's a big demand, and home inspectors are working a lot of hours. And so, but basically, there's things that determine the price. That's the square footage of the home. And then you sometimes you would add a termite inspection onto that.
Right.
And then sometimes you would add a pool inspection onto that. So those things all add cost. And then one thing that's different home inspectors handle differently is the age of the house. If the house was like 50 years old, they're just going to take longer just because they're older and they have other things to write. But those are the basic things that drive the price of the home inspection. So, I would say an average home inspection for a house around under 2,000, let's say 1,700 square foot, around $300. It could vary from, some guys might charge $350 to $300, but that's kind of an average price.
Gotcha.
Around $300 for 1,700 square foot house.
So how can somebody best reach you if they need a home inspection?
Well, I would love it if you did that. And as Jimmie said, I've been a home inspector for a long time, and I was a contractor before. And if you are interested in having a home inspection from me, I would tell you first that you would get me. I don't have any employees, so if you hire my company, you get me to do the inspection. And you can reach me on my cell phone, which is the best way, at 602-550-1025. I would love to hear from you.
There you go. Well, Richard, thanks for coming in. I think that's going to be a big help.